Unfortunately, as we're recording this, we found out the sad news that one of the Marvel greats, the great Jim Shooter, not only Marvel, but of course Valiant and his other comic book endeavors over the years and stuff, but sadly, Jim Shooter passed away. So,
Yeah.
thoughts, boys, about Mr. Shooter?
Well, I never worked with Jim. I've known him a long time. We used to play poker together in the early '70s at Levitz's apartment in the city. Used to see him at conventions. I know the stories, and like all I can go by is you know how he was with me. And there was we were at a convention 2000. We were at a convention in Westchester, New York, and I was with my 4 or 5 year old son at the time, and he was in his stroller, and we're walking around, and he got something in his eye. So I rolled him into the men's room, and I'm trying to, and Jim came in and saw what was going on, and kind of got down on his knees and like distracted my kid
Oh, that's
while,
nice.
and that was just sweet. I'm getting a little emotional
Sure.
because
Yeah.
it was a long trip for him to get down to his knees.
That's what I was thinking. He had to fold himself
It
down.
took an hour and a half, but he got there. No, it was just very sweet, and he was very good with Max, and and I never forgot that. And again, I never had anything but good interactions with him. I know I have friends and people I've worked with who had issues with him, but I can only go by myself. It's not like he's Donald Trump, and if you associate with him, you're immediately evil. It's just like here's a guy who people have a very different opinion of, and it's okay.
Mhm.
Jim, any thoughts?
I don't think you can get much more polarizing of a figure in the industry than Jim Shooter. But I think my takeaway is at the end of the day, you have to look at what he accomplished and his work and that era of him being editor in chief. And yeah, I know he, rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, but he got results. He also was behind one of my most favorite comic book series of all time, and that's the original Star brand of the new universe
New universe. Yeah.
books.
Yeah,
But
well,
yeah, I mean, you can trace back so many different things, to Jim Shooter. Like Kirby, he had a vision and he put it into motion,
yeah,
and he wasn't going to let anybody stand in his way of achieving that vision. And I think a lot of people who maybe have heard all the stories, if you said, when you were a kid or whatever, what was one of your most favorite eras of Marvel, and they may start citing those different things, and you could probably say, oh, well, guess what, Jim Shooter was editor in chief at that time,
well, Jim was brought in to make the trains run on time because
yeah.
the trains were off the freaking
Yeah.
tracks,
Yeah.
and you're not going to be popular by doing that.
Right. Right.
Uh, uh, you're going to make a lot of enemies, and he did,
Yeah.
but he did the job. It's like Coletta. He did the job he was hired to do, and he
Hmm.
did it. He got it done. And don't forget, here's a guy who became a professional comic book writer at 13 years
I
old.
That's another thing that,
A kid living in a trailer in Philadelphia,
yeah,
Pittsburgh,
you got to
Pittsburgh,
give it up to
Pittsburgh.
him for that.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, and he
Yeah.
started sending scripts to Mort Weisinger, and Mort bought him, and Mort was a prick of the highest degree, and he treated all of his creators bad, and I'm sure he especially treated Jim bad because Jim was a kid who wouldn't fight back.
Hmm.
But this guy was turning out those Legion of Superhero stories and those Superman stories at 13, 14, 15 years old
Yep.
that, were better than anything I was writing at 24.
Hmm.
So, hey, he knew what he was doing. He could write a story. He could run a company. He could kick you in the head if that's what it needed to get the job done. But yeah,
Well, even
Arguably, he set the Legion on the path to the
absolutely.
popularity that they later,
He was the
enjoyed. But,
he was the
you
guy
know,
who gave them a continuity.
yeah,
He was
absolutely.
uh, you
Yes.
know,
yeah.
Carrie and what Hamilton, I guess before
He
that.
was
And Hamilton.
drawing too, wasn't he handing in like full drawings of his
Yes,
script?
yeah, he would do. I don't know if he did it all the time, but he would do layouts on
Yeah.
boards, or and with John Forte drawing it, I guess it doesn't matter what you get because everybody's going to be, you know. But still, yeah, no, it's just he contributed a lot to comics.
Yes.
There was his Marvels. There was the Valiant. There was whatever. He did it. He
Well,
did it.
also to put more context on what you were saying about the having to get the trains to run on time, a lot of the writers had also been not only editors of their own books, but even times as editor in chief. So clearly, they had their own ways of deciding how management should run and how their own comics and just in general how things could run. But also, ironic timing. I mean, it's going to be another 2 years, but eventually we'll get Marvel Secret Wars, and of course that was based on Jim's original story. And luckily I only interviewed him once, talked to him a few times at conventions. At Terrificon, Mitch was kind enough to set me up with him, just me and him, and it was a full education, even in just that short 50 minutes of the way he thought about things and the way he laid out stories and his ideas when the toy line came to him and said, "Yeah, we're doing this thing with the figures. Come up with a story." Well, just like Crisis at DC, Secret Wars is one of the hallmark Marvel epic stories of the 80s.